Now by a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator and combat veteran Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. Senator, as a combat veteran, and thank you again, as always, for your service, what concerns you the most about Pete Hegseth? Is it his seemingly retrograde views of women, or his alleged mismanagement of funds, or his alleged drinking, or all of the above?
I mean, hi, Joy. It's all of the above. Frankly, this man is not qualified to lead the greatest military on the face of the earth. I don't know that he could plan and supervise a combat mission. Remember that the largest organization he ran was it was a platoon, so that's maybe 40 guys. And the DOD is 3 million personnel, civilian and uniform. He's in over his head. There's no way that he's qualified to run the Department of Defense.
Just some a little additional reporting. This is from the Princeton reporting. Under Hegseth's watch, the Tory, his publisher, published a cover story in 2002 that put a cartoon owl in a gun sight. And then on page 3 appeared to show the same owl with 3 bullet holes in its head, drops of blood spilling to the ground, which the Tory headline was, "Killing Feminism, Owl Sabotages the Women's Movement," and that's Organization of Women Leaders. We've also had Gretchen Carlson, who more in an up-to-date world worked with Pete Hegseth. She's urged the Armed Services Committee to let Hegseth's alleged victim provide testimony anonymously. Here's the quote. While Mr. Hegseth has allegedly released the survivor from her non-disclosure agreement, his attorney has threatened to sue her for defamation if she were to come forward to discuss what happened to her and if her testimony were to prevent Mr. Hegseth's confirmation. Mr. Hegseth's threats cast a chilling pall on women who simply want to speak out about sexual misconduct and should be, and in and of themselves disqualifying. What do you make of that? We've had something like we've had 28,000 service members have experienced unwanted sexual contact in 2023. 82% of them were women. 18% of them were men. 8,515 reports of sexual assault involving service members are still active. Should this man, should the woman who was allegedly assaulted by him be allowed to testify, in your view, or should she be protected somehow and allowed to testify?
So, Joy, that's the problem. My understanding, so there's an FBI report that was given to the top Democrat and a top Republican on the committee to read, but the rest of us were not allowed access to it. And remember that the FBI report is requested by the transition team. So it's requested by the Trump transition team. And they have not interviewed any of the women with significant allegations against him. Well, quite a few of the women with significant allegations against him have not been interviewed by the FBI investigators. These women don't want to come forward because they are afraid. Some of them have young children, and it's multiple women, and they are afraid because of the really attacks and threats to their personal safety and the safety of their children, which is why they have not been able to come forward or wanted to come forward and testify before Congress. That said, my understanding is some of them would like to be contacted by the FBI investigative team of the vetters, and they have not been talked to. And so now we are faced with this incomplete report. And even as incomplete as it is, I'm not even allowed to see it. So I don't know what is in this man's background. And this is a guy that's going to lead, this military. 20% of the force is women. And female warriors who meet the same standards and achieve their positions in the military and go to combat and fight alongside their buddies. And this man is going to lead them, and they don't know if he's going to have their backs.
To say nothing of it, I didn't even mention his seeming sort of non-negative views toward people who are alleged to have committed war crimes. What do you think it would do to the military to have someone like this man who, the right loves to talk about DEI and claim that anyone who is a person of color or a woman is inherently unqualified for whatever job they have? He has no qualifications for this job. There's nothing about him that makes him qualified other than Trump likes him on Fox and his demographics, which the future president seems to like. What do you think it would do to our military to have someone like this come in with no apparent real FBI thorough background check and then be in charge of our nuclear capabilities?
Yeah, well, I think it would be bad for morale, obviously, but I think it would sow confusion because our leaders in the military wouldn't know what they could talk to the Secretary of Defense about. And by the way, for our allies, I would be reluctant to share information with the United States military, with our leadership, information that would keep us safe and keep our troops safe, because they didn't know if this man is compromised. Remember that the point of the background check is to make sure that the person you put forward can't be compromised, can't be blackmailed, can't be bribed. These are all the types of things that background check is supposed to be providing information to me, the senator, who is going to be part of the advise and consent. So I can't even make up my mind whether or not this man personally is vulnerable to being blackmailed. What if the next woman comes forward while he's Secretary of Defense and say, I'm going to come forward and I have the receipts on you and that sexual assault, and I have tape and video, whatever that is. What if Russia comes forward and says that? Now do we have a Secretary of Defense who can be bribed or who can be blackmailed by a foreign power? Because if I was a foreign power, that's what I would be trying to dig up that information on. All of that aside from the fact that he's not qualified to run the organization. He's never run anything bigger than a 40-man platoon. The last two organizations that he was responsible for their financial well-being, they had to bring in a forensic accountant because he mismanaged it so badly. This man is not qualified to run an Applebee's, let alone the Department of Defense. I mean, your local Applebee's manager has managed more people and a bigger budget than he has, for crying out loud.
I would hope that the Democrats, while they still have the power, would at least call Chris Wray to explain why there's been such a non-thorough background check. But as we leave this segment, what would be the chances that your Republican colleagues would care about any of that when the incoming president of the United States has some 24 accusers that are women who claim some form of sexual abuse, which of course he denies, and who was found by a jury in New York to have done to E. Jean Carroll what he bragged he could do to women in the 2006 Access Hollywood tape, and I could go on, and who was adjudicated by a New York jury to have had sexual relations with a porn actress and then paid her off to cover it up, along with a Playboy model, which, of course, again, he denies, but did get adjudicated for it. With all of that history, why would Republicans treat Pete Hegseth any differently, in your view?
If your viewers and if the American public sees tomorrow how unqualified this man is and reaches out to those Republican members and tell them that they will not accept this man being confirmed, that will pressure my colleagues to put country above MAGA, to put country above self, and certainly not bow down to the altar of the MAGA extremists, because that's where we are right now. It's sad to say, but it is about convincing Republican members of the Senate Armed Services Committee to put the well-being and the national security of America above MAGA interests. And we'll do our best. We're going to do everything that we can to show how unqualified this man is.
I have no doubt that you will. Senator Tammy Duckworth, I'm not sure I have faith in your colleagues on the other side, but I certainly have faith in you. Senator Tammy Duckworth, thank you so much for making the time tonight.